Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I've just been taken aback by our chat. I tell you what, I'm not going to start the show like I normally would. I'm going to go straight over to it. Our friend James Doble, who, as many of you know, has had some health issues recently, is back after a prolonged absence. James, can't tell you how welcome back you are. Many thanks indeed for joining us. I hope you're fitting well. Let us know how you're getting on, my friend. But welcome back. Welcome back to the fold. Yes. I can probably start the show properly now. Good morning. As I said, how the devil are you doing this fine day? Bloody, bloody, blah. I'm almost staggeringly tired today. After I finished yesterday's show, I did a Zoom call for about an hour before hearing my father-in-law had been rushed into hospital. So it took my wife to see her father and then spent the afternoon running around making sure that my wife and my mother-in-law were okay. What with one thing and another, I didn't actually drag my sorry behind into bed until just after midnight last night, and I woke this morning. Didn't even know what day of the week it was. Didn't know what my name was. Had no idea what was going on. It took me 2 attempts to make a cup of coffee this morning. And today's show has taken about twice as long to pull together as it normally would. So please bear with me. I'm bumbling most days. It could be a whole lot worse today. Yes, before we get into the show for today, I heard this morning about a competition that you might find of interest. Here on the Breakfast Show, we like to give away sort of hats and pens, sometimes T-shirts and stuff. Blue Group do things better and bigger. They are currently offering you the chance to win a Rammer hydraulic breaker, which is probably one of the best breakers in the world. That's what the competition looks like. It's all part of their build-up to the Plantworks exhibition. If you'd like to be part of the competition, if you'd like to be in with a chance to win a Rammer hammer, courtesy of the fine folks at Blue Group, I'm going to post a link in the chat right now. Bear with me 1 second. If I do that one, and as this is part of the Plantworks, I'll do that one as well. If you haven't already done so, then please go and pre-register for our Plantworks, because I'm going to be there and I don't want to be there on my own. So please do that. But while you're about it, use that link. Go over to let me see. Can I find the link that I can read out? Yeah, there we go. It is competitions.blue-group.com. Go over there and you could be in with a chance of winning a Rammer hammer, which would be quite a good prize, I would suggest. Now, let me take that off. Where are we? Yeah, completely out of sync today. Yes, you've got all your links. Now, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the reintroduced question of the day, and get this show on the road. Yes, it is a Wednesday, the 17th of May. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, how OilQuick is achieving steady progress in Italy. A new bucket-mounted system allows excavator operators to see underground utilities, while the transparent bucket system from Develon allows wheel loader operators to see potential hazards in front of them. The two kind of go together, as you'll see. Plus, we are going to be whizzing back to SaMoTer to take a look around the massive Komatsu stand. And we're going to get to all of that in just a second. But before we do, let's peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this day in history. I should say a very quick good morning to our friend Lee Upton, who's just joined us. Morning, Lee. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, on this day in 1536, Anne Boleyn's 4 lovers, were they, or did Henry VIII just have the ump? Hard to say, but her 4 lovers were executed shortly before her own beheading. Henry VIII may not have been quite as cuddly as the history books make him out to be. In 1713, on this day in history, Vivaldi's first opera opened in Venice. On this day in 1824, the diaries of Lord Byron were burnt in what is described as the greatest crime in literary history. In 1861, the first colour photograph was shown at the Royal Institution in London. I wonder what they would make of this. Yeah. In 1895, W.G. Grace, him of the beard and the cricket bat, scored his 100th 100. And in 1973, Stevie Wonder released You Are the Sunshine of My Life, basically proving that he's one of the greatest musicians of the entire universe. And on this day in 2009, the video game Minecraft was unleashed onto an unsuspecting world. It's still going today. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you of the question of the day, and let me do so using my new computer game avatar. Yeah, so if you didn't work in construction, or if you weren't doing your current job, what would you be doing? What would you like to be doing? Do you have a secret talent you could put to use elsewhere? Is there a specific career that you wanted to pursue, never got the chance? Personally, I always fancied myself as a kind of a box-to-box midfielder at Upton Park for the mighty West Ham. Oh, it was never quite good enough. Although watching them this season, I probably could have got a game. But let me know in the chat, what would you like to be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing, and what could you have done if you're not doing what you're doing? We'll come back to that at the end of the show. The chat. How I love the chat. I'm going to say a very good morning to William Forrest, who I believe is joining us for the first time. So he gets some welcome confetti. Good morning to you, William. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Whereabouts in the world are you watching from? Why are you watching? We need to know these things. I'm also going to say a good morning to our friend Majid Islam, who says, hi, sir, all the way from YouTube land. Thank you very much indeed for being here. You also get to share in the welcome confetti. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I'm going to say a very quick good morning to the superstar that is Steve Williamson. And I'm also... Question of the day was, what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're currently doing? Gary Muirhead says, maybe a train driver. Need something to keep me on the right track. We now know, people, who writes the jokes that go into Christmas crackers. Thank you for that, Gary. Now, today's show has something of an unplanned theme, actually, and that theme is seeing through stuff. There was no thought put into it. I have to say, this is just how the cards landed for us today. And we're going to start looking through things with my new mate, Haim, who has developed a bucket-mounted system that allows excavator operators to spot unseen underground utilities. Wearing somebody else's teeth today. Now, you have to bear with me because the video file was actually too large for my live stream system, so I'll have to drag it in a different way. So bear with me 1 second while I do that. That's not what I want. Here we go, right about now.
I'm Bear. I'm the VP of Partner Development for Rod Radar. 50,000 years, man has been digging in the ground. The only thing that changed is the tools they dig with. The problem always been the operator and the digger are still blind to what's underneath. Rod Radar developed a bucket based on a question that one of our customers one time asked about 8 years ago. He said, you can see power line, but I can't see them on the ground. Why? So we embedded a ground penetrating radar into a bucket. We also use the OilQuick coupler that enables you to connect very quickly onto the attachment, automatically connecting the power and the information that can go right into the cab to the operator's tablet. We embedded radar antenna, so there are two antennas, the sending and receiving, that allows the radar, once it's operated, to actually see into the ground. Radar is it's an incredible thing. It's been around for over 45 years, the ground penetrating radar. The problem with ground penetrating radar, it's designed to see deep. Our engineers were able to develop algorithm in the tablet that translate the information coming in from the radar into numerical numbers, meaning he gets the range and he gets the depth of where the utility is exactly. It's very, very precise. So it's really unique. The other part of radar, which makes it more complicated, radar sees everything. So how do you ignore the rocks, stones, roots, things you don't look for? So the algorithm was developed to ignore anything that is not perfectly shaped. Man-made material, it will identify it. If it's odd shape, it will not. It will ignore it. And that's really unique. Let's say that he's going to dig right here. So he starts a little bit ahead, and we mark the ground from the starting point right here, which is in between the two antennas. That's the starting point. He hit the button on the tablet telling it I'm ready to go, and then he's going to scan. After a second, the tablet now knows we have a gadget inside here in the RCM, the radio control module, and it measured the distance that it traveled. So at this point, it will tell you where it is. So let's say it tells you right here, there's a target, and guess what? Oh, it's 22 inches deep. It's very precise. So now he can peel the onion, just peel a little bit, and then do another scan and get really close. The idea is really simple. Instead of digging this much by hand, they only have to dig this much by hand or vacuum. It saves the operator's back, it saves the guys on the ground, it's make it really safe, and we're very proud of it. Even though it is what we call a job aid, it's meant to help not just to prevent utility strikes, but to increase efficiency, to save on digging by hand or vacuuming. The ingenuity of it is not just to make it survive, but also serviceable. So that's really the key. So it's surrounded by hard-X steel. It's designed to live as long as the bucket, but it is serviceable. In an unlikely event that you hit some rebar and you tapped it by accident or whatever, we can replace it. The cable goes from here to the packet right here. There's a chamber. It's covered by this plate. By removing this logging plate, you can actually get to the RCM. Every component here is serviceable. So we did not lose volume and capacity in a bucket. It looks like a bucket. It's actually cracked like a bucket. But guess what? It digs like a bucket, but it's a work tool. Just a month ago, one of the big customers that we worked with hit underground electrical power. They did not have an LDR, live dig radar. They just used a regular bucket. It was mismarked, it was marked in the wrong place. They thought it's clear, they hit it. The operator ended up in the hospital. They called me right away and they said, Bear, we need an LDR and we need it now. And I have to give credit, our partners, AMI, our producers, they're from Canada. They performed a miracle. They made up one of the buckets for us. Our folks in Rod Radar, based in Israel, they sent us the electronics, and within a week and a half, we're able to produce and bring them an LDR. And I was there in Tennessee last week, working with them, showing them how to use it so it will not happen again. It's really, the safety factor is enormous. If you cut the power line, you can get hurt. If you hit the gas line, you get hurt. When you hit fiber optic, you can actually shut down a city, and it's happening. So we meant to avoid the utility strikes, to minimize them, to bring safety, productivity, and efficiency, and it's amazing.
Pretty good, right? Yeah, it's been a long time in approval, that one, but I'm glad to bring that to you now. So had a couple of questions. First off was from our new friend, William Forrest, who says, any idea on the price point of these? I've had a couple of customers ask about them, but no reply from Rod Radar or AMI with pricing, unfortunately. I've just dropped a line to the guy that you just saw on the screen there, Chaim. I'll get back to you on that, William, and see if I can get some sort of movement on that. Steve Williamson says, I asked the question if this could work through a tilt rotator. They are working with tilt rotator manufacturers to have this bucket work through tilt rotator. Definitely the future. Totally agree. There is William Forrest again. I've said I'm going to actually reach out to Chaim, which I've already done. Won't do any harm. Seems like a decent concept, but price point will obviously be a major factor. Totally right. And Steve Williamson again. Is it possible to get this video? Steve, more than happy to share it with you. We haven't actually put it on our YouTube channel yet, but more than happy to get it to you. I can either send it to you and make sure you sit on it for a day or thereabouts. Either that, or I'll wait a day and then I'll send it to you. But one way or another, more than happy to share that. And James Doble, who is very welcome back indeed. What a clever idea. Safety first, then a money saver on striking services. I knew it was going to be popular when I first spotted it over on the OilQuick stand over in ConExpo, and I've been looking forward to bringing it to you ever since. Personally, think it's a very smart solution. I did hear somebody while we were filming that actually say it seems quite slow. Still a hell of a lot faster than repairing a water or a gas main. What do you make of the rod radar system? Let me know in the chat. I've already had a few comments on it, but we'd like to know what more of you think. So we need some of this. Yeah, we're going to continue with our theme of seeing through stuff. Who knew that was a theme? We're going to take another trip back to ConExpo to show off one of the most talked about innovations we have ever featured. Now, you might recall, if you were here yesterday, that Steve Williamson was actually talking about, well, he was actually praising the cameras on Doosan or Develon machines. Well, here's another view of those cameras. Only this time, we're not looking back. We're actually looking forward with the Doosan/Develon transparent bucket system.
We'd like to demonstrate for you Develon's industry-exclusive transparent bucket technology. It's available on the Dash 7 series wheel loaders. The machine uses two forward-facing cameras. One is right in the middle of the front axle in between the two front wheels. The other one is up high on the cab. And essentially, these two images kind of work just like our eyes. They stitch the two images together, and then the obstacle in the blind spot, in this case it's me, shows up on the screen, and this on the big screen is a replication of exactly what the operator sees on his screen in the cab. The other thing about this technology on this particular machine is what's called around view monitoring, or AVM. Whenever he puts the machine into reverse, there are three cameras and some sensors up on that bar on the rear of the machine. Now I show up as an obstacle and a red triangle. That indicates danger. Also, the red border around the screen tells the operator in the cab there's a dangerous situation, an obstacle behind him, and he will see that very display on his screen in the cab. There are three cameras, as I mentioned, and they all combine to form that one single image for the operator, very much like what you would find on the sensors in your automobile.
Yeah, I was actually lucky enough to meet the guy that actually developed that system. Really smashing, humble guy. Unfortunately, his English didn't make for a very good interview, which is absolutely fine because, frankly, I don't speak a word of Korean. Don't forget, our question of the day is, what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're currently doing? Come back to that a little bit later in the show. Just going to say a very quick good morning to Stephen Guthrie, who's just arrived. Morning, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed for being here, as always. Now, over the past decade or so, I've been lucky enough to chart the progress of OilQuick as it basically spans across the globe. Even though it arrived on UK shores with a proven pedigree, it took some time to gain traction. Well, the same thing is happening in the US, where the system is still picking up early adopters, but the demand is growing so quickly that the company has actually begun manufacturing in the US. And even here in Europe, some countries are only now turning onto OilQuick. One of those countries is Italy.
I'm Alessandro Galasso, the sales director of Ramit SPA. We are the Italian official distributor and service partner for OilQuick. When you go to Germany, then you see that people are already aware of this system. And even in the exhibition, for example, Bauma, they go to the demos, but they know already which kind of system it is. Here it's very different, so you have to explain from zero sometimes. They don't even know that such a clever and sophisticated system exists. So we have to explain from zero, and in some cases they are very skeptical, but in some others they are very, very interested to know more. We have an excellent demo area outside with a CAT 309, which is a MIDI excavator, but still it's quite small compared to what is the, let's say, main target for OilQuick in the excavator. OilQuick request is coming from the north, from Germany, let's say, and it's now well present in Trentino Alto Adige region, the South Tyrol in particular. And from there, it's spreading all over the north. So now we are in Verona in this exhibition, and we are registering in this territory in particular a very big request. From there, it's also spreading southern. So the last regions that will be covered by this request will be probably Puglia, Calabria, Sicily, the very deep south. For that it will take time, but for the rest we are registering a very high request, higher and higher since the last 2 years. Everything is very well proven by the quality, because OilQuick is the very first producer in the world of these covers, and it's since '93 that they are in the market. They sold even more than 40,000 systems, so they had the time to develop all the things that is necessary to make the system work and reliable. OilQuick are very trouble-free machineries, so basically the only things that are requested are some O-rings or some couplings that can be provided very quickly to the customer, even if we don't have in stock, because it can happen. From Sweden it's only 48 hours, so it's very quick service.
Yeah, Alessandro was a really smashing guy. We had a great time on the OilQuick stand at SaMoTer. We're going to go back to SaMoTer in just a second, but I do need to say a couple of very quick hellos. We have somebody called Invisible Lord over on YouTube who is watching at the moment, and they are more than deserving of some welcome confetti. Good morning to you. Wherever you are in the world, please let us know where you are in the world. Back to the comments, and let's have a look. I know Dan Cullen has just arrived, who says, top of the morning, ladies and lads, better late than never, happy hump day. And he then goes on to say, no, that's not him, that's me. What was the question of the day? And there it is. That is the question of the day. If you weren't doing your current job, what would you do instead? We've already had some answers on that, but could do with a few more for the chat afterwards. Now, we've just been to the SaMoTer show in Verona, and we're heading back there in just a second. But first, we need one of these.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yes, let's head back to Verona, where the sun was shining, the pasta was plentiful and delicious, and where Komatsu was putting its stamp on the SaMoTer exhibition in pretty impressive style.
We're here at SaMoTer 2023 in Verona in Italy. We're actually on the biggest stand of the whole exhibition, and that stand belongs to Komatsu.
Yeah, as you can see, Komatsu put on a really impressive display at the show, and they were an absolute pleasure to work with as well, which is really quite nice when it's a big company. And I would say exactly the same about Volvo, and I'd say exactly the same about Liebherr. Absolute pleasure to deal with them. Now, so from something that I enjoyed, Verona and the SaMoTer show, to something I like rather less. So you receive a letter through the post. It's been addressed to you, and the envelope clearly shows your name and your address. You slip open the envelope and find that it contains a form that requires filling out. It might be from your doctor, your insurance company, your car leasing company, your bank. But the form is entirely blank. And what are the first two questions on the form? Yep. What are your name and address? Would it really be so hard to print these forms with your personal information already filled in? They've managed to put it on the envelope. Why is it not on the form? I've seen it done. I know it can be done. The technology exists. So imagine if you pre-registered, as I encourage you to do, if you pre-register for PlantWorks, you arrive, you show the organisers your QR code, and they print you a badge that clearly shows your name and the name of your company. You walk onto a stand and with that information clearly displayed on your chest. And the person on the stand looks at the badge, reads it, and then says, "What's your name?" You'd think they were an idiot, wouldn't you? So come on, those companies that send out forms, you clearly have our information. How about using it? That's my gripe of the day. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets your goat, and generally butters your parsnips? I said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. I have a funny feeling that I've backed myself into a corner with this. By this point in time, I was expecting to have been inundated with your own personal gripes of the day. Not really had much, but please let us know if you have one. That's going to pretty much wrap up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you have the time and the inclination, I'd love for you to stick around on the other side of this for what is now known as the Craic. So let me play out with a word from our key show sponsor. Good morning, all. I'm going to start. I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start with good morning to James Doble. Welcome back, James. You have been sorely missed. Delighted to have you back in the fold. I hope that means that your health is much improved. Let us know how you're getting on. Fingers crossed for you, my friend. Already mentioned, spent a large part of yesterday at St George's Hospital in South London yesterday because father-in-law was rushed in. He was already on the waiting list to have a couple of stents fitted, and lo and behold, he was taken ill before he even got there. So fingers crossed for him today. First off the mark was Ken Hatcher, who has a mixture of black and orange suns. Not sure what that means, but good. There is Jim Turner. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And there he is, the man himself. Good morning, Mark and gang. Hope you're all well. More importantly, James, we all hope you're well. welcome back. Really pleased to see you here. There he is, the model human, Gaz Evans. Morning, Gaz, who is probably still churning out attachments as we speak, just in time for Plant Works. Don't forget either, you can still enter that competition and win yourself a rammer hammer, which I don't know how much a rammer hammer costs, but it's a few quid's worth, I would imagine. So if you would like to do that, there is a link in the chat. Go and give that a follow. Glenn Johnston, yesterday's big prize winner. Glenn, I owe you an apology. Your prize is boxed up, but it's sat outside the office door because I literally came off a Zoom call after yesterday's show to be told that I needed to get myself to St George's Hospital. So it's boxed up. It's got your name and address on it. It just hasn't made it to the post office, but it will do in the next hour or two. So bear with me. Gary Muirhead is back as well. Morning, Mark. Morning, guys. And he then goes on to say, good morning, James. Yes, good morning, James, indeed. Al Grierson. Where are we? It's Wednesday, so it's not even World Al Grierson Day, but he's here anyway, all the way from luxurious Luxembourg. Morning, Al. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. There was my question of the day. If you weren't doing your current job, what would you do instead? I've already said my dream job was obviously being the new Trevor Brooking at West Ham. That would have been quite nice. But in actual fact, the thing that I came closest to, don't know if I've ever told you this before, I'd been working on Contract Journal and Plant Manager's Journal, and ultimately on International Construction before it was sold back in the day, late 80s. And I was headhunted. By a magazine that specialised in the aerospace industry, actually. I don't, to this day, I either don't know or I can't recall exactly how they found me, but they got into contact, and I had to do an over-the-phone interview, and then I had to do a second over-the-phone interview. This is all pre-Zoom days, obviously, late 80s. And then I was offered the job. Two things. First is, the job was in California, which would have been marvellous. But the job would have started 2 days after I got married. And I looked at it, and I ummed and I ahed, and tried to figure out how I was going to break the news to my wife. Yes, we're now married, and we're going to move to the other side of the world. And in the end, I declined, and I stayed precisely where I was. I actually went freelance as a result of that, but I stayed in the same country. But that's what I could have been doing. I could have been talking to you like, well, I wouldn't be talking to you lot, obviously, but I could have been speaking like a surf dude by now, having spent 30 odd years in California. Wasn't to be. Do I regret it? Tiny bit. If it had been 6 months earlier or 6 months later, I probably would have gone with it, because the job was superb and the location was fantastic. Just the timing was horrible. Let's have a look. Who else have we got in the chat? We've already mentioned Glenn, who was yesterday's winner. There's our friend Lee Upton. Morning, Lee. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Nick Drew is in the house. Morning, Nick. I think we hear more from Nick in just a second or two. Ken Hatcher says maybe he'd be doing something in electronic engineering or working at the Mint. Isn't that mixing business with pleasure? So here's another thing, and this was never considered as a career, but those of you that know me know that I quite like my fishing. And all the time, when I was growing up, my father used to buy the Angling Times and the Angler's Mail on a weekly basis. He was often in them because he was a very good match angler back in the day. And when I became a full-time journalist, I told him that I was going to get one of my articles published in the Angler's Mail. And I did, and he was very pleased. But my take on it was I actually wrote an article about going fishing and catching absolutely nothing whatsoever, which, for those that fish know, is quite a common occurrence. And I got a letter from the editor that basically said, it was refreshing to hear the truth of fishing. We have people sending them pictures of their latest big catch, when in actual fact the reality is you don't always catch anything. So I was publishing that. Did I ever consider becoming a writer of the Angler's Mail? I did wonder, when you're sort of 20 years old and you hear from the editor of a magazine or a newspaper, as it was, it does make you question it. But I literally, you know, even at 20, I did wonder if somebody said, we'd like you to write the Angler's Mail, your favourite pastime would then become your job, which would probably take the shine off it. So even at 20, I decided that wasn't going to be the gig for me. They never offered it to me anyway, so not a problem. William Forrest is here as well. Morning, folks. Morning, folks, he says. Good morning to you, William. Oh, excuse me. That coffee didn't sit well at all. Question of the day. Jim Turner says, I'd probably be doing the auctions, trading in plant and agricultural machinery, along with a bit of farming. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Maybe a train driver, says Gary Muirhead, who needs something to keep him on track. Yes. Steve Williamson says, farming would be something I'd be doing if I wasn't driving machines. It's not that far of a stretch, is it? Machines in farming, machines in construction. I realise they do different jobs and everything else. But there is that underlying love of all things machinery, isn't there? Question of the day. Nick Drew says, would like to have gone further in my ice hockey career, then pursued a career in coaching afterwards. Yeah, absolutely. I've never asked you, Nick. I mean, you were playing professionally, weren't you? How much further could you have gone? I don't know. Could you have been an export to Canada or North America somewhere or Scandinavia possibly? I've never actually asked you the question. I'm doing so now. As I say, I got paid to play football once. I played at county level, so quite fancy myself up until the point that I started playing against some proper players, at which point I realised I wasn't nowhere near as good as I thought I was. But I was actually, I think it's beyond the point where I can probably be prosecuted for it. There is a very low league team called Carshalton Athletics, I think they're called, fairly sure. But they were playing in one of the very early rounds of the FA Cup. It would have been about 1986, 1987 or something like that, and they were a player short. And I got a phone call on a Friday night. Can you play for us? And any chance to get the boots on was welcomed. But they actually said, we'll pay you to come. So I got paid to play football once. I played in the FA Cup. Who knew? We didn't qualify. I was terrible, but I played in the FA Cup. There you are. But going back to that rod radar system, any idea on the price point of these? We never ask. It's a strange thing about construction equipment journalism. I'm sure our friend Nick Drew will back me up on this. There's no point in asking, because we are generally dealing with the manufacturer. Manufacturer sells their product to their dealer, and the dealer will then set the price based on region, dealer discount, longevity of their relationship with the customer. So any price that we're given by the manufacturer, which, as I say, there's no point in asking, so we don't know, but it would be utterly meaningless. So we've no idea on the price point, which I thought I'd clarify. But I've had a couple of customers ask about them, but no reply from Rod Radar or AMI or with pricing, unfortunately. I have, while you were watching something else, I've dropped a line to Chaim Bear to ask him to pull his finger out and see if I can get some sort of indication on that. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not even entirely sure. And again, this is another question that we didn't ask. Early days for Rod Radar and for AMI, who are the US distributor of it. No idea if they're planning to actually export the product to the UK, and I would imagine, being it's an electronic device, there is an opportunity for things to go awry. Electronics and construction, not generally a good mix. So I don't know if they have any plans to import it. If they do, I've no idea how they plan to support it. But either way, I've dropped the line over to Chaim, and I'll be back to you as soon as I can, William. I asked the question if it will work with a tilt rotator, and apparently it will. It may not now, but it will. So yes, that one's done. And yes, Steve, we've clarified that. You want to show the video to your company. Always keen. They're always keen on things like this. We have 2 suction excavators that are always busy. In that case, I will be firing up that video for you a bit later today. Not a problem at all. And we are in agreement. Better slow than hitting a service. Dead right. Yeah, well, it's interesting. In a building site, there are so many things that the camera sensors would pick up. all the time. Would this be annoying, constantly beeping and flashing? There are systems, and I'm not entirely sure. I'm fairly sure that's about the Develon transparent bucket. As you saw with the rod radar system, it is possible to pre-program these devices to tell them only to recognize certain things. Obviously, people like Xwatch and Machine Max and the like have systems that can detect humans. They can, you can drive for example, a backhoe loader down the road, and it will ignore cars, it will ignore lamp posts, it will ignore other static objects. But as soon as it detects a human, you get an alert. So it is possible. Again, all of these things, I always come back to this. All of these things would be utterly unnecessary if we could all just take a step back and plan our work accordingly and make sure that machines were there, people were there, never the twain shall meet, in which case we don't need transparent buckets, we don't need reversing cameras, we just crack on with our job. One lot of people working in one area and one lot of people working in another. Not beyond the wit of man, and yet it doesn't happen. Stephen Guthrie is in the house, who says he drives recovery trucks in between for a family-owned company. Nice. There is our newfound friend, Invisible Lord. Don't like to break it to them, but I can see them. But Invisible Lord is in the house. OilQuick gives me a headache. I don't think that's what he's aiming at. OilQuick is a fantastic system, and as I say, it has been so interesting. When I used to do quite a bit of work with ECY Hallmark, who were the original importer here in the UK, and from very, very early days, it was clear that OilQuick was a fantastic system. It had its Scandinavian pedigree and everything else, and yet it sometimes felt like ECY were banging their head against the wall, trying to convince UK customers that this was the way forward. And then they managed, certainly in the area that I specialise in, they knocked over AR Demolition and they knocked over Armac Demolition, both of whom adopted the system, at which point the entire UK demolition industry went, that's a good idea, that. If it's good enough for Armac and AR Demolition, it's good enough for us. And that's how it took off. When you look at the US at the moment, we featured previously after ConnectScope our friend Ricky Webb over at East Coast Demolition in America, in Carolina, one of the Carolinas. He is an early adopter, but you know full well, give it a year, give it 18 months, the rest of the US demolition industry will fall into line because it is that good. Dan Cullen says, top of the morning, ladies and lads. Better late than never. Happy hump day. Yeah, happy hump day indeed. There is your question of the day, just in case you were lacking. And there he is. There's Dan Cullen saying, I'd be doing farming or looking to help us get work. Support people to gain the qualification. Very noble indeed. Al Grierson says he would be a full-time digger, photographer, videographer, like a poor man's Paul Argent. Paul Argent's a poor man's Paul Argent, didn't he? But I get your point. Komatsu know how to do exhibitions. Looks great and a lovely tune, says Dan. They really do. And you know, and I did make the point when I was talking about it earlier, but there are companies. I'll name the good, I won't name the bad. There are companies who, if you imagine a tier system, so if you imagine the first division of the champion of the football league, there are some companies that are small and, you know, hard working and everything else. You've then got the championship, where you've got your middle tier companies, and then you've got your premiership. And in the premiership, I would put the likes of Komatsu, Liebherr, Volvo, JCB, and so on. One down from that, I would put the likes of OilQuick and Steel Wrist and Kinsoffer. And then below that, I would put the ones that I'm not going to talk about. Despite the fact that Caterpillar's the biggest equipment manufacturer in the world. XCMG is the third, Komatsu is the second. XCMG and Komatsu, in my experience, a pleasure to deal with. Volvo and Liebherr, a pleasure to do business with. Kinsoffer, OilQuick, Steel Wrist, a pleasure. Grib Attachments, a pleasure to do business with. You get below that, and it starts to get sketchy. And let me just, to be clear, we were working for as well as with Komatsu, and their involvement in what we did at SaMoTer was, there's our stand, go film it. That was it. There was no brief. There was no we want 15 Instagram posts, and we want you to interview this guy and then that guy, and then we're going to approve everything. It was, there's our stand, knock yourselves out. When I went to Volvo last year, here's our product line. Here's a driver that will take you around and escort you while you drive everything. Have fun. Liebherr, you go to Baumer with Liebherr. Here's everything that we make at a demonstration area. Have fun. Go play. Get down to that bottom tier, and it's you want how much to do a video? Well, I want twice as much for half as much money. I'll pay you in 90 days. I'll make you jump through hoops. I won't approve what you've done, even though I've posted it on my Instagram. Bloody nightmare. And going back to Al Grierson, who says, would like to be a full-time digger photographer, like a poor man's Paul Argent or Fred. Trust me, you don't want to be like Fred. Thank you, Mark. I will private message you, says James Douglas. Look forward to reading that. There he is. My great big companies not paying us on time and dragging out payment as long as possible. Yes. Yes. So, you've all seen that we work with a big number of brands in the States while we were in ConExpo. We walked onto the Grib stand on the opening day of the show, and they complained that we hadn't given them an invoice. We gave them an invoice when we got back. 2 days later, they paid us. XCMG paid us half up front and paid us half about 3 days after the show ended. Who else was there? Cabelco? Top payers, no problem at all. And yet, and unfortunately, what I will add to Nick Drew's gripe, he is one that really, really gets my goat and grinds my gears. So a company approach us, they approach Nick, they approach Peter Haddock or whoever it might be, and say, you know, we want to work with you. We want to do a thing with you. How much would it cost? So you tell them how much it costs, they agree. And you do the work. You do the work, at which point they say, yeah, send us an invoice. So you send them an invoice, and then they say, oh, actually, you need to fill in this form to be on our preferred suppliers list. Okay, it's inconvenient, and it only contains the information that's already on my invoice, but I'll do it. You send it back, and then they say, that's fantastic, we pass that over. Our payment terms are 90 days. Don't mention that up front when they're negotiating the deal. Trust me, if I'm charging you £2,000 to do a thing, and you tell me you're paying if your payment terms are 90 days, it's £3,000. Why should I bankroll your company? Yes, but Nick, totally in agreement on that one. I'm going to skip a comment, and I'm going to come back in a second. Luke Carney is here. Late. Apologies, a meeting this morning. How inconvenient. Does the entire UK construction industry not realise that this show is going on between 10 and 11? About bloody time they did. But no worries, Lou. And just to let you know, we actually opened the show with the competition that you told us about, that the fine folks at Blue Group are running. So people are aware. Dan Cullen, my gripe is cab guards. Why don't they have easier access and holders, as the digger guard is really awkward and blocks view up, away for observation of obstacles above you? There has to be easier alternatives. Possibly. Dan Cullen, question of the day. I push companies to actually stand by their word on mental health checks and actually connect with their operatives on the ground. I'd like to see that as well. They are looking to the UK to sell Rod Radar. I was told they are looking for someone that could take on the brand. Do you know, I have a concern, and this isn't a gripe, this is just an observation. One of my concerns with that kind of product is it has the potential to get lost. despite the fact that I think we're all in agreement that it's a fantastic system and has real potential. That is the sort of product that could end up being picked up by one of those companies, and we all know who they are, who represent 97 different manufacturers. They offer 3 different excavator brands, 14 different types of wheel loader, 107 types of attachments. That is the sort of product that could so easily get lost. If you could find somebody, a person with experience but not much else on their product portfolio, I reckon that rod radar could go great guns here in the UK. Nick Drew says, we played mainly as amateurs at Southampton from 77 to 88 for its high-level league stuff. I only started getting paid when I moved to Basingstoke in 88. By that time, I was past my best. I could probably have played in Europe, but wouldn't have stood a chance in North America, being a short ask. Yeah, they breed them big over there, don't they? Austin Wilkinson has them on his machines. OilQuick. Yeah, to be perfectly honest, these days, it's actually easier to name companies that don't run OilQuick or an alternative to it. There is our friend Wolf Welder, who is over in the US. Good morning. Hopefully I'm not too late. No, never too late. You can turn up after the show if you wish. Work shift change. If I changed jobs, I'd be doing structural stick welding. I'm doing general fabrication right now. Yeah, I wish I had that kind of skill. To be perfectly honest, particularly the age I am now, if I wasn't writing about demolition and construction, I'd probably just have to write about something else, because I am very much the one-trick pony. I can write. That's about it. Gaz Evans, I would love to have been a coronation mud designer. Plenty of time off. Yeah, but when you were working, boy oh boy, did you make some money, eh? Good call though. Right, I think that's going to do us for the day. A couple of quick reminders. Next week is going to be problematic for me because on Monday night we fly to Czech Republic. Myself and Fred fly to Czech Republic to go and hang out with the fine folks at Bobcat. We arrive late on Monday night, and we're there Tuesday, Wednesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday next week there will be no show, but I'll be back all guns blazing hopefully on Thursday with tales to tell from our travels in Czech Republic. And then on Friday, obviously, we will have our afternoon show, 1 p.m. Hopefully, we've got some content for it this week. Hopefully, so our construction equipment news show will be there. And I've just learned, apparently, Nick Drew is on the same flight as me to the Czech Republic. He's been there before. I never had. My son Fred has been to the Czech Republic. Maybe not the bit that we're going to, but Nick Drew has actually been there with Bobcat before. So, Nick, I'm following you. Looking forward to spending some time with you as well. I think that will do us. Just on the subject of stuff coming up. So Tuesday, Wednesday next week, complete write-off. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, I have the joys of a colonoscopy coming up. Nick, I'm going to ask you questions about that while we're in the Czech Republic, because I know you've had one. Can't say I'm looking forward to it, but I've got one of those coming up. So I'm going to miss another couple of days. One while I am being prepared for it, and those that have had one knows exactly what that preparation involves, and one while it's being done. So I can't remember what the date is. It's not like the 30th or the 31st, thereabouts. Our friend Irvin, who was here yesterday, has just joined us. I'm afraid, Irvin, you've missed 99.9% of the show, but welcome anyway. Yes, that's what I feared about the colonoscopy. I'm not looking forward to it. I think I'll be busy next week. Glad to hear it. Are you doing anything special, Steve? I bet you are. I probably should never mention this in public. Gaz Evans says, up Periscope. Yeah, can you imagine being the submarine captain? That's the view. Yeah, I pity the poor doctor. Right, people, go and have a fantastic day. For those of you that arrived late, obviously, you are forgiven. Well, forgiven my children. But this show will be available wherever you're watching, be that on, I think Irving's over on LinkedIn, but the show will be available in recorded format on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Facebook as well. So anything you miss, you can hop back and take a look. I'll be back here again tomorrow with yet more of the same. Probably still clenched from Gaz Evans' up Periscope comment, but we'll be back tomorrow 10 a.m. sharp as always. Until then, everybody, go and have a fantastic day, and don't forget to enter that Rammer Hammer competition. I would like nothing more than to get a report that says that somebody from this show actually won the competition. So please go and enter, see what you can do. I'll speak to you soon. All the best.